Sage Wanderer here, and welcome to another episode of Coffee Talk. I love that Long Island, New York accent. I have a friend from Long Island, and she says, it's not my fault that the dog drank all my coffee. Can we talk? But, yeah. So today we're talking about the mysterious and scary black-eyed children. Don't. So, what are the black-eyed children? This is not so much a conspiracy theory. And remember, Coffee Talk is for conspiracy theories that I don't believe in necessarily, but I find interesting. So this one is more of an urban legend than a conspiracy theory. But because, and you'll find out towards the end of the video, because of what I think these are, it fits perfectly into some conspiracies that we probably all are interested in. So, black-eyed children. The way this goes is, of course, first of all, this is a story that keeps resurfacing. People keep telling this story, and it's circulating on the internet since the 1990s. There's many first-hand accounts, and they all have some very similar things about them. Some similarities, as it were. So, it kind of goes like this. You're home alone late at night, and or maybe not alone, but you hear a knock on the door. And you go and look out the window or through the peephole, or you open the door and look out. And it's one or usually two children between the ages of 10 and 18, all dressed in black. Usually, if it's cold and wintry outside, they seem underdressed for the weather. And immediately, it evokes in you a desire to help them. Because what are these poor children doing out wandering around late at night, knocking on my door? And on top of that, they ask for help. They usually ask in a very monotone way at first to be let in, either to use your phone or to wait for their parents, or just to be let in from the cold. Another variation of this story is you're driving your car and you're flagged down by one or two of these, and they ask to be let into your car or ask you to give them a ride. And the universal reaction to this, for some weird reason, is that they're frightened. That the people that encounter these black-eyed children are immediately frightened, like in a weird, supernatural, guttural, animalistic way. And they get a fight-or-flight instinct from these kids, and they don't understand it. And so we don't really have any stories of people letting them in. Because I guess maybe no one survived letting them in, or maybe no one lets them in because of the fear. But once you say no to them, or you act hesitant, then they get more forceful. And they say, let us in. You have to let us in. You have to let us in. And they start trying to persuade you to let them into your home. And it's at this point, typically in the story, when either the hood is pulled back or for some reason the people notice for the first time that these children they've encountered have black eyes. Either just the iris pupil area is completely black, or in many of the cases, the entire eyeball itself is completely black. Which strikes terror and fear and freaks people out. And typically they slam the door in their face, and that's the end of the story. Sometimes the kids stay outside and continue knocking for hours until sunrise. Sometimes they come and try the windows and try to get you to come to the window and talk to them. And if you're in a car, typically the person drives away. In one instance, a young boy was waiting in a parking lot for his mother to get done at the beauty supply or the beauty shop. And one of these black-eyed children tried to get him to let him in the car, and he refused. And then the black-eyed child went into the beauty supply, or beauty shop rather, and found the mother and asked her for the keys to her car, so he could get into the car where the young boy was. As far as I know, there's only one documented case of people that actually let black-eyed children into their house. One story. And I won't go into the details of this story, but they let these kids in. The kids eventually asked to use the bathroom. There was two young boys. and then just went to the bathroom like they knew it was there, really, without waiting for them to tell them it was okay. They just went to the bathroom, went to the other end of the house. People are freaking out. These people are freaking out. Their animals are hiding. Like, everyone's afraid of these two black-eyed children. In this story, once the kids come out of the bathroom, they tell the people, our parents are here now, and they leave and go out to the front, leaving the door open behind them. And then there is a black sedan with two men dressed all in black waiting for them, and they get in the car and drive away. Now, recently, I believe this was in 2016, we had the incident where two black-eyed children were reported in Manchester, England. And you can look this story up and see the photographs for yourself. Is it fake news or is it real? I've seen this from multiple sources, and I tend to believe that it's real. Tell me what you think on this story. Just look up black-eyed children arrested, and you will find the details of this story, which I will now roughly tell you, that two of these black-eyed children, a boy and a girl, went to a hotel in Manchester. Now, the cops had already been called on these two. They'd been panhandling in the street, and there was nothing that they could really do about it because they weren't breaking any Manchester laws. And so they couldn't really arrest these two vagrant children. But one night they come into the hotel room, and this is all on surveillance video, and there's no audio, but their surveillance video will show. And I believe you can find this footage. I haven't seen it recently, but I have seen it, where they're both standing there and they're talking to the night clerk, and the night clerk is shaking his head, and telling them no about something, because there's no audio, just video, and they are pointing towards the hook where he keeps the master key and the hotel room keys, and they're demanding the master key to all of the rooms. And he's telling them no and shaking his head no to them. And then he just seems to suddenly change his mind, and he slowly moves over. This is another element of the black-eyed children story, is that if you tell them no and they get demanding about it, some people feel absolutely beyond their control to stop. Like, they will go and start to open the door, and then they come to their senses and go, what am I doing? So, like, they feel compelled to help them. They feel compelled to open the door, even though they're scared to death and don't want to. And it appears that that's what's happening with the night clerk when they're demanding the master key to the hotel rooms. And he's telling them no, but then he changes his mind, slowly goes over and hands them the master keys, and then goes back to a break room behind the desk. 4 minutes later, he comes bolting out in a terror and calls the police and sets off the fire alarm to make all of the people in the hotel room come out of their hotels so these black-eyed children won't get to them. And the police come out and answer the call, and they find the boy and the girl hiding in a maid's closet. One of them dressed now in a maintenance uniform and the other one in a maid outfit. And I guess their plan was to pose as hotel staff to gain access to the hotel rooms. These two black-eyed children were then arrested. They were given physical examinations by doctors because they were concerned they wanted to know whether the black eyes were tattoos or body modification or natural. And as far as this examining doctor could tell, they were two perfectly healthy, roughly 18-year-olds. These 18-year-old black-eyed children, it's kind of being 18 is a little weird, but he said they were physically 18, even though the pictures, they appear to be much younger. But at any rate, the doctor said that their eyes are natural in some way, that he couldn't find any evidence of injury or body modification or tattoo ink in the eye or anything like that. And so they were holding these two kids in a common area with several holding cells in the Manchester police station. Thank you. My brain failed me. Brain spasm. It's the black-eyed children. Oh. So they put these two kids in cells and holding cells in a common area with other prisoners. And almost immediately, all of the prisoners started getting sick. And, you know, I talked about the couple that let the two black-eyed children into their house that went off with the men in black. One of the things that happened during that encounter is the man immediately started having nosebleeds from that story. This is the couple that let them in the house. He started having nosebleeds that night that continued for weeks, and they finally went to the doctor, and they found that he had an extremely rare form of melanoma cancer, skin cancer, typically caused by indoor tanning, which he never participated in, never had an outside job, never was one to be an outdoorsman or to tan, and they lived in England where they don't get a lot of sun, and it was a big mystery. But this guy had cancer after meeting with these children. So now flash forward to the 2 black-eyed children now that are being held in the Manchester Police Department in the jail, and they put them in that common area, and all of the other inmates, other prisoners, started complaining of nausea, headaches, dizziness, nosebleeds, and achiness, and some of them passed out, some of them threw up, and they were going to have another round of examinations for the black-eyed kids, and so they removed them from that area, and immediately, like a light switch went off, all of the people felt better when the kids were gone. So I thought this was going to be a short video, but this is a pretty long story. But so sometime later, the timeline I'm not completely sure of, but feel free to check out this conspiracy theory because it's a trip. A short time later, they were going to transfer these kids from the county jail to a place where juveniles would be held, where it was a little place that was more about, you know, a hospital environment potentially, rather than a jail environment, while they continued to check out these anonymous children who wouldn't talk to them or tell them who they were or where they were from, and they had no evidence. Their fingerprints were turning up nothing. They couldn't find out who these people were, and they were going to transform to another place that was more appropriate. They never made it. There is a transmission from the radio of the paddy wagon, the transport van that was being used to transport them, with some eerie sounding, screeching, screaming, and otherworldly noises coming through. And that's all we have by way of evidence. The transport van was found 3 miles away from its route where it was supposed to have gone, and it was completely destroyed, and there were, I think, 4 or 6 dead police officers. 2 of them had their organs removed. Dun, dun, dun. So what are the black-eyed children? Well, one of my first things to conjecture about was, well, maybe they're demon-possessed. Maybe they're just, you know, because I don't believe the devil can just take children like in The Exorcist. I don't believe demons can do that to children. Not unless their parents invite them in and turn them over to them, which could be the case. These children could be the victim of satanic ritualistic abuse, and somehow they escaped their captors. Another thing I thought might be possible is that maybe these are aliens, and they've inhabited or reanimated the bodies of dead children, and they're using them to somehow get to human beings by being invited into their home. Now, there is the old saying, this is why they have to have permission. Many of the stories, the children say, no, you have to let us in. You have to invite us in. We can't just say we can come in. You have to say we can come in. And there's this old wives' tale, old, I don't know, concept, idea, doctrine, I don't know what to call this, that you don't allow a vampire to come into your house, that you have to invite them, that they just can't just come in. You have to invite them to come into your home, or they can't come in. And I've also heard amongst people involved in deliverance and spiritual warfare that you should never invite a witch into your house. Now, I gotta say, I'm not scared of any of this. I'm not the least bit scared of demon-possessed people or devils. And you might ask yourself, Sage, how did you get that way? I know who I am. I'm joint heirs with Christ. Demons shiver when I walk past. They would you too if you knew who you were, who you are in Christ if you're a Christian. That when I professed Christ, when I took communion, when I got baptized, when I accepted the Holy Spirit indwelling in me, darkness is afraid of me. It took me a while to figure that out. I was a scaredy cat for a long time. You can see that in my story. But at any rate, this stuff doesn't scare me. The black-eyed children don't scare me, but I wouldn't let them in my home necessarily either. Because that somehow there's some spiritual access that they can gain if you invite them in, if they're an invited guest. You're agreeing with them in some way. So, the black-eyed children, after doing some research for this video, I've come to another conclusion that I think is the truth. I believe the black-eyed children are some kind of experimental mind control children, because of the story of the couple that did let them in, the man that got the cancer. They let the kids in. When the kids left, they got into a black sedan with two men, all dressed in black suits. In suits. Sounds like the Men in Black. Are the black-eyed children escapees from a government experimental project, or in projects, because this could be multiple governments, because apparently this is happening in America, England, and other countries? Are they building an army of soulless black-eyed children? They're raising up super soldiers with black eyes, and that somehow they're escaping? Is it supernatural? Is it aliens? Are they demon-possessed? Or is this just a campfire story, just a ghost story like some others with a new twist? I will say this, there are photographs, mugshots, of the boy and the girl who were arrested and later escaped in Manchester. But I've been told that there's a cover-up concerning that, and that a lot of the evidence has been destroyed, and people are changing their stories inside the government, and they're trying to pull stuff off the internet and cover up the whole thing and pretend that it never happened. Sounds like the Men in Black to me. Are the Men in Black and the black-eyed children the same thing? Are black-eyed children just men in black who haven't grown up yet? Don't. Tell me what you think in the comments section. Coffee talk! Till next time.